Welcome to Globewise Entertainment, where we journey deep into the golden age of movies and television, uncovering forgotten classics, hidden gems, and timeless stories that shaped entertainment history. Today, we're blasting off into the past to explore 10 sci-fi TV shows from the 1960s, incredible series that captured the world's imagination and then mysteriously vanished into the void of television history. From cosmic adventures to mind-bending technology, these shows defined an era of wonder and creativity. So sit back, relax, and let's rediscover these lost treasures of science fiction together. And hey, if you haven't subscribed to Globewise Entertainment yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you never miss our deep dives into the world of classic Hollywood and retro TV. Which show from today's list do you remember, or wish would return to our screens? Tell us in the comments below. 1. My Favorite Martian, 1963 to 1966. Before E.T., before Mork and Mindy, television audiences of the early 1960s fell in love with one quirky alien hiding right here on Earth. That alien was Uncle Martin, the so-called Martian played by the brilliant Ray Walston, who crash lands on Earth and takes refuge with a young newspaper reporter, Bill Bixby. At first glance, My Favorite Martian looked like a light-hearted sitcom, but underneath the laugh track, it was pure science fiction magic. Uncle Martin could turn invisible, move objects with his mind, and even time travel, all powered by his strange antennae that popped out from his head whenever something bizarre was about to happen. Audiences adored it. The show debuted in 1963 on CBS and instantly became one of America's most imaginative comedies. It wasn't about alien invasions or space battles. It was about friendship, curiosity, and how humanity looks from an outsider's point of view. But as the decade shifted, so did television tastes. By 1966, colorful new sci-fi series like Star Trek and Lost in Space were dazzling viewers with bigger budgets and flashier effects. My Favorite Martian quietly ended after 3 seasons, not because fans stopped loving it, but because the network wanted something new. Still, its legacy lived on. Decades later, My Favorite Martian inspired comic books, cartoons, and even a 1999 Disney movie starring Christopher Lloyd and Jeff Daniels, a tribute to the charm and wit that made the original unforgettable. Today, it's a hidden gem of 1960s sci-fi TV, a show that blended comedy, imagination, and heart long before sci-fi sitcoms were even a thing. It may have vanished from mainstream memory, but for fans who remember, My Favorite Martian remains a timeless reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary visitors can teach us the most human lessons. 2. The Prisoner, 1967 to 1968. The mind-bending masterpiece that outsmarted its own time. In the late 1960s, while the world was obsessed with space races and spy thrillers, one British TV series dared to challenge reality itself. That series was The Prisoner. Created by and starring Patrick McGoohan, The Prisoner was unlike anything television had ever seen. It began with a mysterious resignation, a secret agent who suddenly quits, only to be kidnapped and taken to the Village, a picturesque coastal prison where no one had a name, only a number. He became number 6, trapped in a surreal utopia where smiling faces hid sinister motives. Every episode unfolded like a psychological chess game, a blend of sci-fi, philosophy, and Cold War paranoia, asking bold questions long before Black Mirror or Westworld ever existed. Who controls our freedom? Can individuality survive in a world of constant surveillance? Visually, it was stunning. Filmed in the dreamlike village of Portmeirion, Wales, The Prisoner looked both futuristic and timeless. Its haunting music, cryptic dialogue, and iconic white surveillance balloon, Rover, became symbols of rebellion against conformity. But perhaps the real mystery was behind the camera. McGoohan's creative control clashed with the network's expectations. The series grew darker, more philosophical, and increasingly abstract. Viewers were left puzzled, fascinated, even outraged. When it ended abruptly after just 17 episodes, fans were stunned. The final episode, Fallout, didn't provide answers, only deeper questions. Critics at the time didn't know what to make of it, but decades later, The Prisoner is recognized as a visionary masterpiece, influencing everything from Lost to The Matrix and Twin Peaks. And yet, despite its brilliance, it vanished almost as mysteriously as it appeared, too daring, too smart, and too strange for its era. Today, The Prisoner stands as one of the boldest TV experiments ever made, a series that didn't just entertain, it interrogated the human soul. I am not a number, I am a free man. That defiant cry still echoes through the history of television, a reminder that sometimes the greatest sci-fi stories aren't about aliens or spaceships, they're about the battle for our own identity. 3. The Time Tunnel, 1966 to 1967. Lost in Time's infinite spiral. In the golden age of 1960s television, when the world was dreaming of space travel and the mysteries of time, one series dared to go further than anyone had before. That show was The Time Tunnel. Created by visionary producer Irwin Allen, the same genius behind Lost in Space and Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, this mind-bending series invited viewers to step inside a swirling vortex that could send you anywhere, and anywhen, in human history. Two government scientists, Dr. Tony Newman and Dr. Doug Phillips, become trapped inside a top-secret time experiment known as Project TikTok. Their mission was to control time travel. But instead, they became prisoners of it. Every week, audiences were transported to a new moment in history, from the sinking of the Titanic, to the eruption of Krakatoa, to ancient Rome and beyond. The show mixed science fiction, adventure, and historical drama in a way that felt groundbreaking for its time. And here's the fascinating part. This was one of the first TV series to feature cinematic-level visual effects on a weekly schedule. The Time Vortex itself became an icon of 60s television design, mesmerizing audiences across America. But despite its bold concept and stunning imagination, the Time Tunnel was short-lived. After just one season, 30 episodes, ABC abruptly pulled the plug in 1967. The reasons? A perfect storm of budget overruns, changing network priorities, and the growing appetite for color-heavy, modern sci-fi like Star Trek. Yet, over time, something unexpected happened. The series became a cult favorite. Fans around the world, from the US to Japan, kept its memory alive through reruns, conventions, and collectible memorabilia. Even decades later, the Time Tunnel inspired countless time travel stories, from Quantum Leap to 12 Monkeys, proving that its legacy never really disappeared, it just got lost somewhere in the past. So maybe the Time Tunnel didn't vanish after all? Maybe it's still out there, somewhere, waiting for us to step inside again. Subscribe to Globewise Entertainment for more timeless stories of lost sci-fi legends. For Land of the Giants, 1968 to 1970. The world that turned humans into ants. Imagine boarding a sleek suborbital passenger ship in the distant future of 1983. Yes, that was the future when this show aired. The craft is called Spindrift, and it's supposed to take a routine flight from Los Angeles to London. But when it hits a mysterious space storm, the passengers and crew crash land on a bizarre planet, where everything is gigantic. Humans are suddenly the size of dolls in a world ruled by towering giants, and survival becomes a daily battle. Land of the Giants, created by legendary sci-fi producer Irwin Allen, the mind behind Lost in Space and Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, was one of the most ambitious shows ever made for television in the 1960s. Each episode blended adventure, suspense, and social allegory, often showing how small humans could be, both literally and morally, in the face of overwhelming power. The show wasn't just a visual spectacle, it was expensive. At nearly $250,000 per episode, it was one of the most costly TV productions of its era, pushing the limits of what special effects and miniature sets could achieve before CGI existed. Audiences were hooked on its creativity, imaginative set designs, and thrilling David versus Goliath storylines. But after just 2 seasons and 51 episodes, Land of the Giants mysteriously disappeared from the airwaves. The answer was simple but sad: money. The show's high production costs and declining ratings made it unsustainable. In an age before syndication could revive cult favorites, Land of the Giants faded into TV history. Yet its influence didn't vanish. It inspired countless later works, from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids to Attack on Titan, that played with scale, survival, and human ingenuity. Today, it stands as a bold symbol of 1960s imagination, a show that dared to make viewers feel tiny in the grand universe of science fiction. 5. Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, 1964 to 1968. The ocean was never this mysterious again. Back in the golden age of 1960s television, few shows captured the spirit of adventure and scientific wonder quite like Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. Created by Irwin Allen, the visionary mind later called the Master of Disaster, this groundbreaking series took viewers on weekly voyages aboard the futuristic nuclear submarine Seaview, helmed by the heroic Admiral Nelson and his loyal crew. Each episode dug deep, literally, into the unknown, from colossal sea monsters to time-traveling saboteurs, to Cold War conspiracies that mirrored the real anxieties of the atomic age. It was part science fiction, part spy thriller, and all imagination. With its lavish sets, miniatures, and early underwater cinematography, the show was years ahead of its time, inspiring later hits like Sequest DSV and even elements of Star Trek's exploratory tone. And in its early seasons, it treated science fiction seriously, an underwater Twilight Zone filled with danger and discovery. But as the seasons went on, network pressure for more excitement led the show into increasingly campy territory. Rubber-suited monsters, mind control plots, and wild mutations replaced the grounded sci-fi storytelling that once made Voyage a hit. Still, fans loved its charm. The Seaview itself became a pop culture icon, and the show's special effects, though dated today, were once Emmy-worthy wonders of television craftsmanship. Then, just as suddenly as it had made waves, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea sank beneath the TV schedule in 1968. The ocean went silent, and the Seaview's crew faded into cult legend. Yet decades later, collectors, sci-fi enthusiasts, and YouTube historians continue to rediscover it, marveling at its ambition, its artistry, and that unforgettable theme by Paul Soto. Because in a time before CGI and billion-dollar blockbusters, Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea dared to turn your living room into the deepest part of the ocean. 6. The Twilight Zone, 1959 to 1964. A journey beyond imagination. Long before modern science fiction dazzled us with CGI and billion-dollar budgets, The Twilight Zone invited audiences into a black and white dreamscape, where imagination was the only special effect that mattered. Created by the brilliant Rod Serling, this anthology series aired from 1959 to 1964, blending science fiction, horror, and morality tales into short, haunting parables. Each episode began with Serling's iconic voice guiding viewers into a dimension not only of sight and sound, but of mind. Every week, millions tuned in not just to be entertained, but to think. Episodes like Eye of the Beholder, Time Enough at Last, and The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street explored humanity's fears, prejudices, and dreams. These weren't just stories about aliens and time travel. They were mirrors reflecting society's anxieties during the Cold War, technological change, and civil unrest. But by 1964, the magic faded. After 5 seasons, CBS decided to end the series, citing budget cuts and creative exhaustion. Serling himself had grown frustrated with network interference. Just like that, the door to the Twilight Zone quietly closed. Yet, its impact never vanished. The show became a blueprint for modern sci-fi anthologies, inspiring Black Mirror, The X-Files, Outer Limits, and countless filmmakers from Steven Spielberg to Jordan Peele. Even decades later, fans still revisit those eerie endings and moral twists that left them speechless. Because the Twilight Zone wasn't just television, it was a profound reminder that our greatest fears and hopes lie not in outer space, but within ourselves. The show may have vanished from TV screens, but its shadow still lingers. In every shocking twist ending, every dystopian reflection, and every sci-fi story that dares to challenge the human condition. 7. The Outer Limits, 1963 to 1965. The Twilight Zone's darker twin. Before Black Mirror, before The X-Files, there was The Outer Limits, a haunting anthology that dared to explore what really happens when science goes too far. Premiering in 1963, this series wasn't just science fiction, it was a warning wrapped in shadows. Each episode began with the eerie voiceover. There is nothing wrong with your television set. Do not attempt to adjust the picture. We are controlling transmission. That chilling opening alone could send shivers down your spine. The Outer Limits blended horror, mystery, and speculative science in ways no one had ever seen before on TV. It tackled genetic experiments, alien invasions, mind control, even questions about human morality. The stories were written by some of the most visionary writers of the era, including Harlan Ellison, whose episodes like Demon with a Glass Hand and Soldier became genre-defining masterpieces that inspired later works like The Terminator. The show's atmosphere was dark, cinematic, and deeply unsettling, more like a weekly horror film than a typical 1960s TV show. Its practical effects and monster designs, created on shoestring budgets, pushed the limits of imagination and gave birth to unforgettable creatures like the Zanti Misfits. But behind the brilliance lay chaos. Budget cuts, studio interference, and scheduling battles with network executives took their toll. By 1965, after only 2 seasons, The Outer Limits was abruptly cancelled, fading into the static it once claimed to control. And yet, it never truly vanished. Decades later, it was reborn in the 1990s with a new generation of fans, influencing an entire wave of dark sci-fi television. Even today, filmmakers from James Cameron to Guillermo del Toro cite it as a source of inspiration. Its haunting tone and provocative themes proved that TV could be more than entertainment. It could be art, philosophy, and nightmare fuel all at once. So next time you see a modern sci-fi show question humanity's place in the universe, remember The Outer Limits. The show that opened the door to the unknown, then disappeared into it. What if your favorite 60s sci-fi wasn't cancelled, but erased by the very system it warned us about? Let's step beyond the limits once again. 8. Star Trek. The original series, 1966 to 1969. In 1966, television audiences were introduced to a daring vision of the future, a starship named the USS Enterprise, boldly going where no man had gone before. Star Trek, the original series, created by Gene Roddenberry, wasn't just another space adventure. It was a philosophical journey across the stars, exploring humanity's greatest hopes, fears, and possibilities. Led by Captain James T. Kirk, William Shatner, Mr. Spock, Leonard Nimoy, and Dr. McCoy, DeForest Kelley, the show became a beacon of imagination, blending thrilling sci-fi action with deep moral questions about identity, equality, and survival. Long before diversity was a norm, Star Trek featured a multicultural crew, including Nichelle Nichols as Lieutenant Uhura, one of the first major black female characters on American television, and George Takei as Sulu, breaking barriers during a turbulent era in history. But despite its groundbreaking themes, Star Trek struggled during its original run. Ratings were weak, budgets were tight, and NBC nearly pulled the plug after just 2 seasons. It took a massive fan-led letter-writing campaign, one of the first in TV history, to save it for a 3rd season. Yet even that wasn't enough. In 1969, Star Trek was officially canceled after 79 episodes, quietly disappearing from network schedules. What NBC didn't know was that Star Trek was far from dead. It was merely waiting to be reborn. In syndication, it exploded in popularity, inspiring conventions, novels, movies, and an entirely new cultural movement. The so-called vanished show became the foundation for an entire science fiction universe, launching multiple spin-offs, blockbuster films, and millions of devoted fans worldwide. From a low-rated series to a multi-billion-dollar global franchise, Star Trek, the original series stands as one of television's greatest comeback stories, proof that even when a visionary idea fades away, it can still ignite galaxies of imagination for generations to come. 9. The Invaders, 1967 to 1968. In the golden age of Cold War paranoia, few TV shows captured the creeping fear of the unknown quite like The Invaders. Premiering in 1967, this gripping ABC sci-fi thriller followed architect David Vincent, played by Roy Thins, who accidentally discovers something the world refuses to believe: aliens have infiltrated Earth, and they're taking human form. But these weren't your typical little green men. They were indistinguishable from us, except for one haunting detail: a deformed pinky finger that exposed their true identity. Each week, Vincent wandered from town to town, trying desperately to warn humanity, uncover secret bases, and expose the silent invasion no one else could see. The tension was real, the atmosphere was chilling, and the paranoia contagious. The show wasn't just science fiction, it was a mirror of its time. In the late 1960s, America was caught between the space race and the fear of infiltration, whether by spies or alien forces. The Invaders tapped straight into that collective anxiety, giving audiences a cold dose of cosmic fear and political allegory. Despite its brilliant concept and powerful performances, The Invaders lasted only 2 seasons before mysteriously disappearing from the airwaves, just like the aliens it portrayed. Some blame low ratings, others say it was too dark for primetime audiences. Yet, its influence never truly vanished. Shows like The X-Files and V owe much to its shadowy storytelling and haunting realism. Even decades later, The Invaders remains a forgotten masterpiece, a cautionary tale of paranoia, perseverance, and the terrifying question: what if the invasion already happened and no one noticed? 10. Lost in Space, 1965 to 1968. The family that got lost among the stars. In the golden age of television, before Star Wars and Star Trek became household names, there was a show that dared to send an entire family to the farthest corners of the galaxy. That show was Lost in Space. Premiering in 1965, Lost in Space followed the Robinson family, a group of brave space colonists whose mission to establish life on a new planet took a disastrous turn when their ship, the Jupiter 2, veered off course. What began as a hopeful journey to save humanity quickly became a desperate struggle for survival, light years away from Earth. The series blended science fiction adventure, family drama, and even a touch of comedy, all wrapped in dazzling, for the time, special effects. The unforgettable robot B9, with his booming voice shouting, "Danger, Will Robinson," became a pop culture icon still quoted today. But beneath its colorful costumes and campy charm, Lost in Space had something deeper, a reflection of the 1960s optimism for space exploration. The space race was in full swing, and America dreamed of conquering the stars. The Robinsons symbolized that dream, courageous, resourceful, and hopeful in the face of the unknown. Yet, despite its devoted fanbase, the series began to lose its footing by its 3rd season. The tone grew more comedic, the plots more absurd, and the once serious sci-fi premise got buried under rubber aliens and laugh tracks. In 1968, after 83 episodes, Lost in Space quietly vanished from TV screens, overshadowed by the rising phenomenon of Star Trek. Still, the show never truly disappeared. Reruns kept the flame alive through the 70s and 80s, and it inspired generations of sci-fi fans. A big-budget 1998 movie adaptation and a Netflix reboot in 2018 proved that the Robinson story still resonates, even in today's era of high-tech streaming. From its retro charm to its surprisingly heartfelt storytelling, Lost in Space remains a cosmic time capsule, A reminder that even when humanity gets lost, we never stop exploring. And there you have it, 10 unforgettable sci-fi TV shows from the 1960s that once captured our imagination, and then faded into the cosmic shadows of time. Each one was a bold experiment, pushing the limits of what television could dream, create, and believe. Even decades later, their legacy still shines bright, inspiring modern sci-fi worlds we know and love today. Which one of these shows do you think deserves a comeback? Or maybe you have a favorite classic that didn't make the list? Tell us in the comments below. We love hearing your thoughts. If you enjoyed this nostalgic journey through retro science fiction, don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe to Globewise Entertainment, your home for the most fascinating stories from Hollywood's past and beyond. Until next time, keep watching, keep dreaming, and stay Globewise.